don't know about you guys, but our school year is just around the corner. It's about to start and I'm in full-on prep mode. So I thought it would be great to share with you guys how I plan for my classes each semester. I think one of the best things you can do for yourself as a school teacher is plan ahead. Obviously, things are going to change. Things are not always going to go according to plan, but knowing that I do have a plan is so comforting and leaves me never wondering, what am I teaching next week? Oh crap, I didn't even plan what I'm doing tomorrow. So I love planning ahead and having a starting plan that can definitely be adjusted as we go. If you're new here, I'm Ms. Bollier and I am a full-time middle school family and consumer sciences teacher. I love sharing all the teacher tips, tricks, and ideas, and I'm especially passionate about organization. So if you love those things, make sure you hit subscribe and don't miss any of my future videos. Before school even starts, plan out your scope and sequence so that you know what you're going to do, and it will take off so much stress during the school year when you are so busy. I know some people don't like to start working a day before they even have to and will get paid for it. But for me, I think it's worth it to start a couple weeks earlier or even just a week earlier than my contract days to plan out my semester ahead. Because once school starts, things get so busy and I have more time before it starts to really plan things out, and it relieves so much stress during the school year. I'm going to show you exactly what I do to plan for my semester. Okay, so just a little bit of background so that things make sense for you. I teach family and consumer sciences, which that could be a whole nother video, but basically it's a big umbrella term for a lot of different topics. I personally teach 4 different classes. They are elective classes. I teach 7th grade, I teach 8th grade, and I teach 9th grade. All different classes though, not together in the same class. So when it comes to planning out my semester, it's very important. I do already have an idea of what's happening because otherwise that can get really overwhelming planning for 4 different classes. But even if you only teach one prep, this is going to help you. I teach only semester-long classes. So if you teach a full year, you could still break it up and just plan for one semester at a time. Before a semester, I will sit down and the very first thing I do is I need to know what my calendar looks like. So I go to my school district's calendar. I like to create my own version, but I will use that calendar to create my own calendar at a glance, is what I call it. And in my district, we are on an A/B day schedule for secondary schools. So this is why it's also important, because I only teach some classes on A days and some classes on B days, and I like to know when that A day and B day falls. It's good to make sure you know when holidays are, when are your breaks. I don't like to have a test or something like the first day back from a break. So it's helpful to make sure you know those big events. Also, if your school has an early out day or a late start day, that can play into what you plan for that day. So the very first step is to know your schedule. I was just going to show you, I create a calendar at a glance and I do it by quarter. So this is first quarter. It's Monday through Friday. Over here it tells you the month, and then it has the date, the number, and then sometimes I'll label things. So if it's 7th grade day, I labeled 7th grade day. My middle school is 7th or 9th grade. I know that's probably really weird for you, but here in Utah, they can't always fit the 9th graders at the high school. So the 9th graders are at the middle school and the 6th graders are at the elementary schools. Okay, so 7th grade day, because they're the ones that are new to the school. Anyways, I'll label the first day of school. I will label any holidays or any breaks. Any days that we don't have school, I like to make, I don't know if you can tell, but a little bit of a gray shade so I can just easily see there's no school that day. I'll label professional development. We have minimal days at the end of the term that are really short days, so I'll label those. And then I also have second quarter. So I went ahead and did all 4 quarters, but I actually will hang up in my classroom first and second quarter for the first semester. That way, all semester long, I can just easily glance over and see. But I will use these as I start to plan out what I'm going to teach each day for each of my classes. This template, by the way, I do have a template on my Teachers Pay Teachers store if you want to get a template, or you can just create your own. That's the first step, is having that at a glance calendar to know when things are, what days are what, and it's going to really help you stay organized as you start to plan your scope and sequence. The rest of the steps I will do for each class that I have, one class at a time. I usually like to start with the one that I think will be the easiest. I actually teach a 7th grade career exploration class that's only one term. It's only one quarter for us, so it's half of a semester, and that means it's half the amount of content to plan for, right? So I usually will start with that class because it seems easier. Do the easy ones first, or maybe the classes you've taught before. Plan for those ones first because you'll just be tweaking with those ones. You kind of already have an idea of the order you're going to teach it and things like that. If you've never taught before or you have a brand new class, here's what you want to do first. You want to think about the order in which you're going to cover the content or the material for that class. So you can write this down on a piece of paper, you could type it out in a Google Doc, but think about a basic outline of how you're going to cover the material. If you like to do units, I prefer to put things into units with most of my classes, then you can think about what type of units you might have, and then within those units, what are you going to be covering? In Utah, for Family and Consumer Sciences, we have strands and standards that we follow for every class. So it's kind of already laid out for me the things I'm going to have to cover, and I just need to decide the order and how I'm going to group it into units. If you do not have strands and standards or a textbook or something to go off of, then you're first going to want to figure that out. What are you going to use? What content are you going to cover? Once you know a basic outline, a basic order, then you can start to actually plan topics for each day that you have that class, that you teach that class. So I'm a really big fan of planning digitally. And it's okay if you're not, you can totally do this on paper if you like to write it down on paper. I've seen some people do it with sticky notes. My mentor teacher, she would print out the calendar and then she'd put sticky notes for each class so she could move the sticky notes around. I think that's probably the best option if you're going to do it on paper, because that's the downside to doing it on paper, is it's like, as you're figuring this out, you're gonna probably be moving things around and things won't stay where you first think they're going to be. So I like doing it digitally because it's just so easy to copy and paste or cut and paste. Control C, Control V, or Control X, Control V, and move things around. I use a digital scope and sequence template that can be found in my TPT store, or you can create your own, something similar. But I like to first just go through each day and put a topic, an overarching topic or a title for that class period. What are we covering that day? Not the details of how we're covering it, but just an overarching title for that day. And then sometimes, depending on the day, I might also go ahead and put in some bullet points of things we're doing. So for instance, with the first week of school, we're not really getting into content of that class yet, but there might be certain things I want to do on those first days, and I will just do bullet points. Not a ton of detail, just basic topics to make sure you're going to cover all the content in the time that you have. That sometimes can be the tricky thing, especially when I teach semester-long classes. My first semester is shorter than my second semester, so I'm always having to kind of figure out how I'm going to fit all that content into that time frame. You just have to start. So start going in the order you think you will, and breaking it up day by day, class period by class period. What topic are you going to cover? Then you might hit a holiday, or you realize we have a short day that day, and so I don't want to cover that topic this day. Maybe I want to switch things around. Or you might get through all your content and realize we still have 4 more class periods, so I need to actually go a little bit slower over some of this? Where can I break this apart? Or the opposite might happen, which normally happens for me, and you run out of class periods. You didn't get through everything. So you've got to figure out, what can I put together? What can I combine into one class period? Or what can I just take out? Maybe it's not necessary to cover. After you get your topics in place and you have something for every class period that you will have that semester, then you can start to really break down each of those class periods and figure out how you're going to cover, how you're going to teach each of those topics. Again, for me, I love just doing bullet points. I also love planning digitally because I can link things directly into the Google Doc so that I know what I'm talking about. If there is an activity, a video, a worksheet, whatever it is, a book I'm going to read, I can link it, and so that when I get to that day or that week when I'm going to be teaching that class, I can just click on that link and it will take me straight to the video or straight to that resource. Makes it really organized and means I don't have to write as much because I'm not explaining what each thing is. You can obviously write as much as you want, as much detail as you want. For me, most of the time, I just do bullet points and I know what those activities mean, what those things mean. Now, this could take you a lot of time if you've never taught this course before to really figure out how you're going to do it. And you'll also probably be creating a lot of content. Maybe you have to create the presentation or the notes that are going to go with covering that topic. Maybe you've got to create an activity to help them to apply that topic. Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of great resources that you can get for fairly great prices, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed by all the content you need to create. That's a great place to look. Also, asking your coworkers or your other teacher friends, I don't know what your situation is, but if you know other teachers who are teaching the same classes as you, asking if they have any ideas or anything they're willing to share with you. That way you're not feeling so overwhelmed. Now, as a first year teacher, I tried as much as I could to really create everything for the semester, but that can be a lot. So at least try to have like the first month or the first 10 class periods, whatever you can manage to have them actually ready to go, because you're gonna have a lot less time and a lot more on your plate during the school year. So the more you can already create things or have them ready to go for the school year, the less stressed and overwhelmed you will be during the school year. Now, I still find myself all the time last minute creating things or updating things. It's just how it goes. But like I said, the more you can have it already ready to go, the better off you'll be. I'm going to actually share my screen with you now to show you exactly what it looks like when I use my digital scope and sequence to plan out my classes. Okay, so I am showing you, this is my scope and sequence template. This is the exact one that I use for my classes. Just in Google Docs, and up here is where I just label everything. I link my strands and standards here so that I can easily click on it. When you click on this, it'll take you to Unit 1, which Unit 1 is right here. But Unit 2, if I click on it, it'll take me straight to Unit 2. That way you're not scrolling, especially once we get to Unit 4. And once you have all of these filled in, it can be scrolling for a long time. So that's a really nice feature that'll take you straight there. I like to label my units. I like to label it here. You don't have to do it by units. You could label it something else if there's another way that you organize the content. And then I like to have the day number because that will never change from semester to semester. I will know like, oh, day 1's always this, day 2's always this, doesn't matter the date. But I also really need the date there. So I will use that calendar at a glance to know what date to put in there. So first thing I usually do is just go through and put in all the dates. And that can take a little bit of time. I also like to bold one or the other. So either bold the date so it stands out if that's more important to you, or bold the day number if that's more important to you. Other additional notes I'll put in this column as well. I will put notes if I need to remember to get a guest speaker to come. I will put supplies that I need for that class period. So especially with child development, there are supplies I need for activities. Like I need my parachute this day, so I'll put the parachute there. Or whatever it is, whatever supplies you're needing, even if it's just like paper, colored pencils, like things you already have in your classroom. But when it's something I need to order, I will link it. But I will go through and start to type in titles. I will just title the basic topic. You can see in my child development one that on this first day of this unit, we're going to first make sure we go over our packets and points, but then we're going to talk about value of childhood and the rights of children. And then the second day, we're going to cover nature versus nurture and bonding. So I just kind of put like a basic overview. And then under that, I will start to type out what activities or things we are doing. And I also like to color code. So you can see I've color coded my units, but I also color code these. So in child development, we are starting a new thing this semester where we're going to do wiggle songs. And I put all of those in purple. And all of our story times, we like to read a children's book each class period as well. And I put all the story times in green. So those stand out. I also like to put homework assignments in blue. And then I link everything. So that's what's really nice about doing it digitally is you can link directly to your resource. Do numbers, or you could just do bullet points. And like, let's say you're doing an activity and you want to put in a little bit more detail about it, you could just explain it right here to help you remember if you've never done it before. Or you could enter it and then tab over, and maybe like I do this a lot if I'm doing stations. I will actually type out what I'm doing for each station. And that way I can see it just at a glance what we're doing, so I'm reminded when I get to this day and I'm supposed to teach it. If you've taught the class before, it's the best because I will just come up, click File, make a copy, and then I make a copy of the entire semester from last semester, and then I'll just edit it. I'll go through and change the dates first, and then I'll move things around as I need for that year, that semester, or change up my individual lesson plans. But it's easy to copy and paste everything. I decide, you know what, this day I actually need to move down to day 5. Then I can do Control X, or if you're on a Mac, Command X, and that will cut it, and then you can paste it somewhere. So I will enter down day 5 and then paste. Now day 3 is there, and I can stop this one. So I'll cut this one. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of backspacing to get it right, and then I will paste it up here. And now I have swapped those days just as easy as that. It's also nice if you're combining some days, so maybe I'm needing to combine what I was going to do here with this day, so I can just copy and paste the content up there. The learning targets, if you don't do learning targets or you aren't big on that, you don't have to fill that in, but it's kind of a good reminder for me to see, like, here's what they need to know by the end of this class period. Here's kind of the goal of this lesson, right? So you can see with my child development one, and I just put them really small because I don't want them to take up too much space, but I like having them there as a reminder. Let's say unit 1, you don't have 11 days, right? So you might need to delete some. All you have to do is select as many rows as you need, as many days. Just make sure you have selected both columns, and then you can right click, scroll down, and click delete 3 rows, and then that will delete 3 rows. Now let's say you're like, crap, I didn't actually mean to delete those. Control Z or Command Z is your best friend, and it will undo. And then let's say maybe you have more than 11 days in unit 1. So you're like, I need a way to add more days to this unit. If you're just wanting to add a normal day, what you want to do is copy 1 day, or let's say you need like 3 more days. Make it easier on yourself and copy all 3, okay? Let's just do 2. So Command C or Control C will do copy, and then you have that copied, and if you right click you can see insert row above. You want to insert as many rows as you are going to be copying. So since I copied 2 rows, I am going to insert 2 rows above that are blank and then paste. The reason for that is if I don't insert those new rows, it's going to paste those rows over the ones I already have. And I don't want that. I want to insert new ones. So make sure you insert the same amount of blank rows as you are going to be pasting. And then obviously you're going to have to go through and edit out these day numbers so that they're actually in the right order again. It's why I would, if you already know how many days you have for a unit before editing the dates and everything, I would go through and just make sure you have the right amount of rows for each of your units. If you're not sure, you're just going to end up having to edit it as you go, and that's okay too. So let's say we've got all the right amount of days in our units, but you have more than 4 units. Just come up to a different unit header and copy the whole thing. So make sure the whole thing's highlighted, and then wherever you're wanting unit 5, let's say right here, we've got to right click, insert a row above, so you have that blank row, and then you can paste. And it'll paste a new header row for you, and then you can retype unit 5. And you can change the color. So when you have this selected, you can come up here and you can change the color. These are the custom colors I used. It's a whole nother YouTube video, but if you Google the hex code for a certain color, then you can find some pretty colors and add them easily. If you click plus, then you can type in the hex code here. Or you can just use this bar to try to find the color you're wanting. And you'll also have to change all the days below it to match that color as well. So just make sure this column is highlighted, all the days that are in it. And once you have used that custom one, it should show up right here. And then you'll have your extra unit. Okay, if you don't even have 4 units and you are needing to delete an entire unit, you would just select the whole header and then right click and click delete row. And then you'll no longer have that. If this bothers you, you can change this, select this, come up here, change the border width back to 1, and then select this side, change the border width to 1. So that's how you can play around with the border widths if you want to change that. I'll actually bookmark it. That way I'm not having to go to my Google Drive and constantly find it and open it. So I will just come up here and I'll bookmark it, and then I create a bookmark folder for all of my scope and sequences. So if you don't know how to do that, right now my bookmarks bar is hidden. But if you go to add a bookmark and then you click more, then it will allow you to add other folders. And then I just have a scope and sequence folder that I can easily look at every time I am on my computer. If nothing else, make sure you have your first week of school planned out in detail, all your resources, any activities you'll be doing ready to go, because I think it is so helpful to at least have the week ahead ready to go. I have a basic topic outline, but then I would at the beginning of each week make sure that the classes or the things I was teaching that week I actually had ready to teach. So if you want to do that and just take it week by week, I definitely recommend at least taking it week by week, because there's nothing worse than the night before trying to prepare for the next day. So try, if you can, to plan as much as you can ahead of time. It just really will prevent that last minute stress and rushing. After you have your scope and sequence done and ready before the semester starts, I love to make copies. I really like to make all the copies I need, but again, if you don't have everything planned out in detail, maybe you can't make all your copies, but for the things you do know about, make the copies, because that's just one less thing you're gonna have to do when the school year has actually started. Especially for the first week of school, get all your copies made. I actually do unit packets with a lot of my classes, and I love to make and print out and copy all of those unit packets before the semester even starts. Then it's ready to go. I'm not having to wait in long lines in the copy room or rush down there during my prep or before school starts. A lot of times the hardest part is just starting. And I know sometimes it feels overwhelming to start planning for a whole class, but you just got to start. So break it down, go follow these steps like I showed you, and let me know if this was helpful. Again, I do have the calendar at a glance, as well as my digital scope and sequence template in my TPT store. If you are interested in those, they will be linked in the description below.